Every HTML element. Number 1, HTML. In this series, I'm going through MDN's HTML element reference, which has all the elements placed into 15 categories. The first category is main root, in which there is one element, HTML. The MDN reference starts with a description of the element. This one is called the root element. Drawing on the analogy of a family tree, we say that every other element on the page is a descendant of the root element. Like most elements, this one is semantic. That is, it means or represents something. In particular, you won't be surprised to hear that this element represents the root of the HTML document. Next, we have a list of the element's attributes. Attributes allow us to customize elements, and we'll talk a lot about them in the course of these videos. The trash can icon here indicates that this first attribute, version, is deprecated. It was part of an older HTML specification and has since been removed. The exclamation point means that this attribute is non-standard. It may become a standard feature in a future update of HTML, but it may not. In both cases, for different reasons, it's best not to use these attributes. Deprecated features may be unavailable in newer browsers, while experimental features won't work on older browsers. There's also a note that mentions global attributes. These attributes can be added to any HTML element, although confusingly they don't all have an effect on every element. The next section mentions a global attribute that's particularly useful for the HTML element. Language, which is shortened to lang. By including this attribute in the HTML element, we let the browser and the world know what language the text of the web page is in. Languages are specified by a certain code that the browser understands. To mark up this document as being in English, I could specify the value of lang as EN. To be more specific, that I am using US English, not British, I could write EN-US. The technical summary has interesting information too. Content categories and permitted content are related, as we will see as we continue our iteration of HTML elements. An element's content category determines what elements it is allowed to be inside, but as the root element, an HTML element can't appear inside another element, so it has no content category. Permitted content is often specified in terms of content categories, but in this case, it's more specific because this is part of the core HTML document structure. An HTML element has a very specific allowed children, one head element followed by one body element. Tag omission is pretty clearly explained. It's permissible to omit certain tags under certain conditions. However, I wouldn't recommend embracing this as it just leads to harder to read HTML. One aspect of being the root element, again, is that no elements are permissible as parents of the HTML element, as it says here. And then we have these two ARIA rows. We can learn from the MDN documentation that ARIA, quote, supplants HTML so that interactions and widgets commonly used in applications can be passed to assistive technologies in order to make websites, quote, more accessible to people with disabilities. Excellent. But then we see this warning. Quote, many of these widgets are fully supported in modern browsers. Developers should prefer using the correct semantic HTML element over using ARIA. And then this note, there is a saying, no aria is better than bad aria. Okay, so for now, we're going to focus on semantic HTML. Finally, in the technical summary, we have the DOM interface. This is what the HTML element looks like from the perspective of JavaScript. There is a lot to say about this, but that's for future videos. Underneath that, we have a link to the HTML specification for the HTML element. You will rarely have to look at the HTML specification, but if you ever find yourself wondering something really specific about how HTML works, this is the place that you can find the answer. And that's it for the HTML element and our introduction to the MDN documentation layout. Next, we'll look at the head element. I hope you'll join me then.